Hey, Mike, how are we doing today?
Doing great, Frank. Welcome back to Perspective Shift, all.
Yeah, it's been
a week or two. You had a vacation. You had a birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
So tell us where you were. You went out of town for a little, right?
Yeah, well, Karen and I went to Lake Tahoe.
Beautiful.
And it was nice because the day we got there Saturday, like early, mid-morning, what have you. Tell me made it to a condo. It was a little chilly there, and by 4 o'clock, it started snowing.
What?
It was
hell?
surreal. Yeah.
That's probably beautiful, though.
Yeah, it was really nice.
A little bit of summer snowflakes.
Yeah, it's freaking August, right? And it was snowing.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but it is Tahoe.
That's
whatever
awesome.
the hell that means.
It was probably good, though.
Yeah. Well, it was quite the contrast. You know, it was pretty cold because we were freezing. But then
I bet.
by the next day, I think it went up to like high 50s, 60s. And then by the time we left, it was like high 70s.
Some cold front just came through in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. It was this cold front that came through, which it would have been nice if it came through Arizona. But hey, yeah.
Finally, we're cooling down here in Arizona.
Yeah.
Thank God the summer is out or is behind us.
Yeah, the mornings are starting to. You can actually walk outside without.
It's under 90 degrees in the morning.
It's like 84 degrees, which
Yeah.
people out there, I'm like, holy shit, that's high. That's high. I'm like, not for Arizonians.
Yeah, not for us, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're excited for today's episode. We're going to be bringing it back to the breathing that we've been talking with you guys about, back to the present moment, and we're going to touch on frequency and vibration today.
Yeah, the correlation between the two. So,
and how the breath affects that.
Yeah, so let's talk about this from a standpoint, because that's really what it is. It's like, okay, we talk about these concepts, and they're really good, because when I started learning about these concepts, they sounded good, but then there seemed to be a difficulty maintaining the understanding of them, or maintaining that they actually work. In other words,
maintaining the feeling?
Yeah, maintaining the feeling when I was in the state of hearing the information, like, oh, this all sounds good, and then like a week later, you start thinking about it, and you're all of a sudden like, is this a bunch of malarkey or what have you? And that's what we're here to talk about today, is how to maintain that state, because it's not the information's poor. It's just that if you're at a different frequency, this information isn't viable. In other words, if you're starving, if you're hungry, information on how to start a business isn't viable at that moment. Trying to get your hands on the sandwiches, you know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely. That's
what we're trying to get people to get to this place where they're out of the survival state and into the creative expression state, to where there's a myriad and unlimited amount of sets of frequencies. And within those frequencies, what translates out of them is what we call vibration. So frequency, if you look at like a radio station, say the frequency call number is like 99.5 or whatever. And I'm not even sure, I don't listen to radio anymore, but say it's a classic rock station.
Okay.
All right. So when I tune to that perfectly, the information that vibrates through that is going to be in the genre of classic rock music. So now it's about, how do I create, get into the frequency state in which I can explore what I call creative expression, rather than we tend to be in the frequency state of survival.
Yeah.
But we drift into these creative expressions. That's why we have these really good days, and then days where it's like, it sounds like it's bullshit. And I get that, because I used to be there, and I would drift up into these places, but I didn't know how I got into that ether. I didn't know how I got into that frequency state where the information, the vibration coming through was right where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And we're going to sound redundant for the rest of our lives, but it's breath work.
Yep.
And we're going to introduce 3 different videos, say short ones, that you can take with you after the show and listen to, and we'll also give links to the full.
It's nice to have the videos just as reference, because you guys can personally dive deeper into the content if you're if you want more information regarding the breathing, regarding the techniques. Frank and I just want to put together like an overview so you can see us kind of connecting the dots between different individuals, and how it relates back to you and back to your main goal, which is maintaining that state. We all get into that state of flow. We know the feeling when we're there. We also very much know the feeling when we're not there. And like Frank's talking about, you get to that state where you're not there and you're like, what the hell's wrong? Something's going on. But the breath can bring you back. It's the quickest way. It's a physical way to get you back to that state that you're yearning for, or the state to create.
Yeah, and that state is then transferred into understanding of frequency. How do we get to these higher levels of frequency and get out of the lower frequencies of survival and stay there?
Well, and we've all had these like type of experiences. You know, you go to a self-help seminar, or you go to any type of seminar or any type of thing, and the energy in the room is great, and you feel it, and you're like, oh, this is awesome. You know, I feel great, and then you get out of that program, or you get out of that 4-day event, you get back into the real world or back into your routines, and it falls apart, and you're like, what happened? And it's because you got out of the state that you were when you were there present, and you fell back into just old patterns, old routines, and with that you drop back to that state. And so your vibration, your frequency, your state of being will determine, how you're experiencing and how you're perceiving your reality.
Yeah. So if you heard, like, say you went to a seminar on business and you got excited about to expand your business, but then you fell into a different frequency state, that information that you got at that higher level is going to feel painful to you. Yeah. Again, talking about business when you're starving is the most ridiculous thing you can do. First, you have to satisfy that need of hunger and then get beyond that point. So these modalities were about breathing, and different types of breathing techniques can actually, they're always there with you. It's like always having a sandwich in your pocket. You'll never be hungry, and that's what we're talking about, because your breath is always with you. And so today we're going to introduce, obviously, Wim Hof, who got me really started on focus on breathwork many years ago. And then we have, I think,
we got another clip
from Sandy.
Yeah.
Breathwork with Sandy.
Yeah,
what is Sandy's last name?
I don't know.
We
Sandy's
have to find out.
I was going to say, we'll have to figure it out.
I listen to him almost every day.
Sure, we can find it online.
Yeah. And then we have another short clip. And these are just short clips we're going to have, just so, not just taking mine and Mike's word for it. Because, like, Sandy's obviously studied this extensively around the world. So it's taken from his perspective, because I wouldn't call myself an expert in breath work, but I do it myself. Obviously, Wim Hof is one of the most studied human beings on the planet when it comes to cold water and breath as well. Mm-hmm. So he has a lot of hidden knowledge that even, like, I may experience, but he can actually explain. And then there's another gentleman talking about Andrew Huberman's work.
Yep.
So the reason is because the more you hear this cross-reference information, the more it links into your neural pathways. And then it's going to, like, okay, because when I first started hearing about breathing, when I was doing Wim Hof, I would do it like, okay, I did it for like 3 days, and then a month would go by, and then I do it again, and then it was the going back and forth, doing it periodically was so uncomfortable. But then I'm like, I do it every day. It's actually, I look forward to it. It's no longer uncomfortable. Just like I go to the gym every day, it's no longer uncomfortable. But it was the intermittent of doing it, very broken. That was the discomfort. And then when you're in a tired state, you don't want to do it. Mm-mm. And it's like, no, you got to push through it. So in the beginning, when you don't want to do something, that's when you do it. When you get really good at this, you're always going to want to do it.
And I still have mornings when I'm doing my breath work where it feels like an exercise. It feels like I'm working at it, and I'm like, oh, But then I get through that, and then it starts to feel good.
Yeah.
Like I'll be doing these deep breaths, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I got 30 more to go.
But what does that tell you when that happens?
I have the mental, the will, it shows me that, like, I know that it's becoming muscle memory.
Yeah, and you're about to discover something new.
Yeah.
Because when I'm doing breath work and it's too easy, then I'm like, okay, I have to vamp it up. I have to go explore another avenue of breath work, or a nuance, if you will. And when I do that, it's like, okay, this is uncomfortable. I've been doing this particular one for 5 days straight, and by the 5th day, I'm like, yeah, I got this down. But then it's like, okay, how do I, expand myself to a different frequency, start to do something else? And what all these exercises do is they regulate your
autonomic nervous system.
Yeah, and when you regulate that, so what are you doing? You're actually getting to the frequency more accurate. Mm-hmm. Like I was telling Mike, I'm like, imagine if you travel this world without a map, without knowing where anything is, you'll eventually discover a beach. All right. And, you look at like Lewis and Clark, they had no idea when they were exploring the western part of the United States. But because Lewis and Clark did it, we don't have to do it anymore. There's road maps. So And now we're realizing these roadmaps were around for thousands of years. And we're finally pulling them out. Like if, Lewis and Clark realized, holy shit, if we just spoke to the Native Americans, it would have been a lot easier trip to get through this thing, through this passage. But anyway, so that's what it is. We don't have to go start from the beginning and start reading Dick and Jane in order to get to Charles Dickens' level of reading. I'm like, just go right to Charles Dickens right away. And this is proven. And the way to best prove it is to do it. And when you do it, like, okay, there is something about this.
That's it. You've got to experience it to know it. And the breath is the quickest. And I know Frank and I, we keep harping on this, but this is the quickest way to get out of the thinking mind and bring yourself into your most natural state. And your most natural state is really a relaxed state. We brought this up in previous episodes. Sandy will touch on this later. But currently, we all breathe at around 12 to 15 to even 20 breaths per minute at a resting rate. And that resting breath rate is actually fight or flight in a survival state. So right now, 95% of us walking around are breathing in a fight or flight state. We are in a fight or flight state all day long. And that is so unhealthy for us. But when we put the attention on the breath and we begin to slow things down, this is when you become more relaxed. You begin to see more opportunities. You see improvements in your business. You see improvements in your relationships with friends, family, romantic partners. You start to see how you can better interact and understand and work with the world around you. And I think that's what I love so much about breathwork is it's a physical way in this non-physical world that we live in, but it's a physical way to bring you into the state that that state of flow, the state we all know is our most natural state. We just have a difficulty accessing it because we have so much external stimuli hitting us at all times. Emails, text message, news updates, work, whatever. It's bombarding us all day long, and our system is always being hit by alerts and notifications and this. And when we slow all that down, holy shit, things really start to change.
Yeah, and then we're going to repeat this again. I'll probably repeat it several more times throughout my lifetime, or this podcast, I should say. But there are 7 natural needs. Yeah. And what happens is a lot of times when things going wrong, you might jump to need number 4 to try to figure out or fix what's going on, and that will not work. So the 7 natural needs, first one is oxygen, so hence breathing. Second one is water. So, and these are all time value. In other words, you can only go 3 minutes without breathing. You can only go about 3 days without water, on the average person. Then sleep. You can only, they say about 11, I've never attempted this, but if after 11 days no sleep, you will die.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah, I read about that. So I don't know. I don't think I've ever been up more than 32 hours or something like that.
Well, something kind of recently, some YouTuber tried to break the Guinness Book of World Records, and YouTube shut it down. He was on day
For what?
8 because he was live streaming him staying up. And they were afraid he was going to die on YouTube.
There's some meth addict that already did that.
Yeah,
come on, this stuff. Yeah,
but it's just funny
because didn't think about freaking taking a.
YouTube literally shut this streamer down. Was like, hey, you need to stop because they thought he was going to die on air or something, or then they were going to be held liable for broadcasting.
This,
But your body needs sleep.
Listen, when you're breaking records, make sure it's valuing you and the people around you and the community around you as well. Don't do it just to be stupid.
Right.
Because I'm sure some meth addict already broke that record.
I'm sure too. But that doesn't count. They've got the external.
It doesn't count. Yeah, but but it's funny that people are trying to do that. But so
totally the 4th natural need.
Yeah, so the 4th natural need then becomes food, and that's it's interesting. There are human beings I've read about that don't eat.
Yeah, there's
much
stories
food.
of yogis that don't eat. They fast for
days. But we're talking about
weeks.
the average human being live on this planet. So then it's food. Then the 5th then becomes shelter. And then after shelter becomes relationships in whatever form. And then we get to this creative expression. So from the breath work, you can elevate right into it. Because when you're breathing really well, obviously water is going to be consumed naturally. And then when water is consumed naturally, you're breathing well, and all of a sudden you start to sleep better. Watch your sleeping habits. When you start doing breath work, watch your sleeping. People that go to the gym and work out notice, hey, I sleep better. I'm like, why? Because when you go to the gym and you're working out, you have to breathe different than you did sitting around. You might not be conscious of what's going on, but that's exactly what's happening. But now you actually be conscious about your breathing. You're actually controlling your frequency state rather than like, I had a good workout today, or today I didn't have a good workout. Like when you're working out, how was your breathing? Like, what do you mean, how was my breathing? Like people don't even know if they're holding their breath or not when they're lifting. I didn't. And I noticed when there were times that I was breathing and there were times I was holding my breath. Well, times I was holding my breath, I was struggling. But no one told me this. The only time I knew how to breathe properly, but didn't know the correlation, when I was boxing. Because when I was younger, and I probably mentioned this before, when anyone knows about boxing, is you have a mouthpiece in to keep your jaw tight so you don't break it. It's not really so your teeth don't break out of your mouth. It's actually to keep your jaw closed. So being your jaw's clenched and closed, you can't breathe in and out your mouth. You have to breathe in and out your nose. You can breathe out your mouth a little bit, but it's more like open up. But you certainly can't breathe in it. If you start to see someone breathe in their mouth, as a fighter, if my opponent's breathing in their mouth, I know I won the fight.
Yeah.
They're going to be gone. Because if you're starting to breathe in your mouth, your body is cramping up. The oxygen isn't getting to the muscles in which it needs to be. So I was aware of breathing, but only in the ring. You know, I was more of a mouth breather outside the ring.
But, you know, it's because we pick up on things that allow us to, you know, perform.
Yeah, the only time it correlated
we don't think it's that. We just are like, oh, this is just what I need to do.
No, and maybe that's why I like to box, because I felt good until I got hit. But you know, it's like I whacked a couple of times, you know. But so I wasn't seeing the correlation between nose breathing and feeling good. I was just correlating with the sport of boxing. But now I'm like, okay, here we are. So here's, for anyone that's never seen the correlation, that's exactly the correlation. So if you want to start working out, start breathing first, because then you'll have the energy and the bandwidth in your mind to actually want to work out. Then you're excited about it. So before I even go to the gym, I do a breathwork session every morning.
Me too.
And then all of a sudden, now when I get to the gym, I'm already ready.
Yep.
Where years ago, I'd force myself to go to the gym, knowing that somewhere in the midst of the workout, I would feel better. It's because my oxygen level wasn't really good, you know? So now it's like, oh, now I see the deep correlation. I wouldn't go as far as saying a complete causation, because causations, man, we really don't know what the true causation is, but there's a strong correlation between breathing and feeling good and elevating yourself to a higher level of frequency.
Yeah, and so like as of daily work, I've been doing breathing now daily for almost a full 2 years.
And I've been daily my whole life.
It's changed. Love it. And so I feel that change, and I think I love the fact that it is a physical way. This is like not a mental. This isn't a paradox. This isn't something you have to like let go of or do a technique. It's a physical way to change the state immediately.
Yeah.
And that is really powerful, because there's not many tools out there that we have with us at all times that can change your actual physical and mental state. And we have the ability to do that with breathing.
And I like the way you brought that up, because so earlier we mentioned this podcast is based on frequency and the correlation with vibration. So when you're feeling bad, that's a vibrational frequency. So when I could go into the physical vibrational and change the way I breathe, change my vibration, I then can change the frequency. So they work hand in hand. You know, it's like, is it the chicken and the egg? I'm like, well, there goes the causation of it. I don't know. But, you know, I can have chicken with a side of eggs. It's, is that allowed? Is that allowed? Like,
I've actually never had that.
Yeah,
but I'm sure somebody out there has done that.
I'm going to do it later today. I'm going to have some
there
chicken
you go.
eggs. But anyway, so when you feel the frequency of yourself drop, in other words, you feel yourself feel dropping, going into the vibrational frequency, vibration attribute of breathing, that can elevate your frequency. So we always have that breath with us. And, you know, and that's kind of what this is about. So it's getting people to realize, just do it and see what happens. Every time I get somebody to breathe, even 3 deep breaths in whatever formation I have them, they always feel different. And it's not worse.
No.
You know, they feel slightly better or greatly better. That's a perspective on it. I'm like, well, if you feel slightly better, keep doing it. See what happens. Well,
and so like we've all heard that, especially the audience listening to this, we've all heard that this reality is an illusion, you know, and yes, metaphysically, you know, spiritually, we all understand this. However, when you're going through it, it feels extremely real. And it feels like, oh my God, I'm in the thick of it. I'm in the mud. You can feel it. And breath work taught me a way to be able to see beyond the feeling. And what I mean by that is, like, I realized, like, when I was uncomfortable or stressed or something like that, and I began to breathe, and I did 5 to 8 minutes or a 10-minute exercise, and then felt where I was at the end of that, it allowed me to let go of things that I thought were consuming me. I thought, like, oh my God, this is so real, this is happening. And the breath work allowed me to see it for the illusion that it is, which is, yes, the mind grabs onto something and it holds it, and you feel like you're being swallowed. You feel like you got 1,000 pounds on your chest. But after that breathing, holy shit, I don't have 1,000 pounds on my chest. And I was able to feel in a state where I was able to move again. I could, like, maneuver around this obstacle or this pain or this suffering experience because I was no longer consumed by it. So this is a way to physically and quickly change your state.
And that's where the understanding of this world we're living in is illusion, but the reality is real. Like, the experience we're having is real. And what I mean is, the way I look at it and the way I define it is, we don't really know what's going on in the physical world when things start vibrating. But the experience that I'm having when I look out into the world and hear everything, touch, smell, taste everything, I use all my 5 senses, that is real. But why is this happening is the illusion. We don't know. So illusion it's not happening. It's just we don't know why these things are coming together. And at some level, I don't need to know that. But
we make up stories how it's coming together.
Yeah, exactly.
For the brain to linearly connect it. You know what
exactly.
I mean? On a linear scale.
Yeah, how does this work? And so throughout science and people studying different stuff, they came to deep correlations to why this is happening. And I with those, it makes the world we live in easier to live. So, but at some level, we don't really know the full causation. Therefore, it leads the illusion. Like when a magician makes something disappear and reappear somewhere else, there was an illusion going on with the switch of the hand, so we'd seen it, but yet it's still we've seen it disappear and reappear in the other hand or what have you. Mm-hmm. But then if you actually talk to the magician, and magician in this case would be the universe, and like, how did you do that? And the magician typically says, I am not going to tell you because I don't be out of a job. And I don't think the universe is worried about being out of a job. But anyway.
Not at all.
Yeah, not at all. So that's how I look at when we say the world we're living in is illusion. We just don't really know why things are happening this way. But we know how to acquiesce within it because of the scientific studies, and people came before us can lay it out a roadmap. And if we follow these, not too strictly, because I want a roadmap, but then I want to explore that trail that has never been explored. That's just the way life is. But at least I have a variance of understanding, okay, this is a somewhat a predictable direction to go in to get into an unpredictable situation, rather than just like floating around in space with no knowledge of anything is not really a way to go either.
No. And there's no fun or excitement in that.
No, it's actually scary. That's called survival. So we want to get into the creative expression level. So we want to get up to that 7th, natural need. Mm-hmm. And if we take care of these other ones, like if breath work becomes part of your regiment daily, even several times a day, all of a sudden, the way you sleep, the way you eat,
everything changes.
Yeah, the way you socialize with people, relationships, monetary money will come to you. So shelter is easy. All of a sudden, that creative expression is where you're hanging out 99% of the time.
So Frank touched on this in the beginning of this episode, but he was talking about like, hey, if you're starving, you're homeless on the street, you're not going to be, you don't care about manifestation. You don't care about that business. You want a sandwich. You want food, and that's important to remember is with the basics of life need to be, fulfilled in order for us to experience more and grow on a greater scale. And that is why oxygen is number one on this 7 needs. When you get your breathing stabilized, it becomes easier to eat. It becomes easier, to sleep, drink water. You become more hydrated. It's kind of like that starting point for this organism and instrument that we call a body. And so we really blow past oxygen and breathing and take it for granted, when if we begin to just provide a little bit of focus on this, like those listening and Frank and I are talking about, you will see physical and mental changes in all areas of life.
Yeah, it's like understanding what's the most important rung on a ladder. And the truth is, they're all important. But if you take the first one out, good luck getting to the second one. Yep. All right? So every rung on the ladder is important, but you have to recognize it's the first one you're stepping on that has to have its stability, and it has to be there. So you can't override oxygen and ignore it and just haphazard. Yeah, the cool thing about it is we don't have to think about it. Our body naturally breathes, but do you ever wonder why you're out of breath and you wonder why you're tired? It is it's lack of breathing properly. And people are like, it's because I ate a sugary food. I'm like, well, if you breathe a lot and you breathe out carbon dioxide, you're actually burning off those carbohydrates. So that's what we call cardio in the workout field. So I see a lot of people even on treadmills not breathing properly and wonder why they're not losing weight, because they're not fully inhaling and exhaling all that carbon dioxide. So you can do this sitting on your couch. The beautiful thing is after doing a session, you have so much energy, you want to actually then get up and utilize your physical body in the introduction to physical fitness or whatever form, go for a walk. It doesn't matter, but you're going to want to use your body as an expression of that energy.
Yeah.
It always happens.
And I think we live in a world today where I think we can all agree, most of us are complaining about a lack of energy. We don't have time for things. We're always working. We need to constantly consume caffeine and coffee and
Red Bull.
All this.
Like holy shit! Like wow! All these energy drinks.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
We're constantly worried about energy, but we still don't ever talk about the breath.
Yeah, I think about this. Like for people that maybe politically look at the green movement or what have you, and trying to get to this place like where we have free energy or energy that doesn't harm us. Well, look at the way we behave. I'm like, so you wake up in the morning and you'll go for your cup of coffee. That nothing wrong with that. I'm not knocking it. But if you actually did breath work, you wouldn't need as much coffee. Or actually, if you did breath work and you felt really good and you drank the coffee, you'd have a completely different experience with the coffee.
Absolutely.
It would actually be almost like psychedelic, right? So I'm not saying don't drink the caffeine, but we already have this energy within us, and it starts with our breath. That's why when anyone goes to the hospital, if they're weak and tired, the first thing they do is they shove a tube up your nose with oxygen. In Vegas, a lot of the casinos will pump oxygen to keep you up gambling.
See, I've heard that. It's funny you say that.
So you feel more vigor, so you have more energy. Hey, let's go spend more money. Let's see if we can win more money. Like, it's brilliant. But when you breathe in deep, you're actually inviting more oxygen molecule, and then you breathe out heavy to get rid of all the carbon dioxide. You're breathing in beauty, and then you're breathing out the garbage. You're pulling in something new and then throwing out the trash. When you fully understand that from a psychological standpoint, it's interesting. But then you start noticing physically, which actually affects the psyche. Because when I breathe properly, I go to higher frequencies. At higher frequencies, different levels of creative expression. I'm like, wow, I got this really cool idea to do this, and oh my God, now I want to expand my business this way. This was never approached to me. And that's what happens. It's not like, okay, let's see what happens and sit tight to see if what I just did works. No, I implement something in my business. And once it's implemented, I go on to the next thing. Just like if I was planting, say, food in my garden, I plant the carrots. Well, I don't wait to see if the carrots come out before I plant the strawberries. I do the carrots and I do strawberries. And the time I get around to the cabbage, all of a sudden the carrots are growing, type of thing. I'm not a farmer, so it probably all happens at once when you do it periodic, like throughout seasons. But you know what I'm getting at. I don't wait to see. It will let me know if it worked or not. If it didn't, I recorrect or go back to that and reevaluate, because everything has to be reevaluated based on the seasons. But I plant that seed, then I move on to the next soil plot of land, so to speak, and plant that seed. So as I keep planting seeds, as I come back around, I notice the early ones growing. And then as I keep moving, every one of them is growing. And then I do this spiraling thing up in life, like that. And when I finally understood that's how life works, I seldom ever fall to the bottom of that frequency where I'm in the soil and nothing's growing. No, it doesn't happen. But if I'm like, I don't need to breathe, I don't need to do this, I don't need to do that, all of a sudden, just like,
the body has to give a way for us to pull us back to say, hey, you don't want to feel this way.
This seems to be something in the physical world where if I stop eating healthy, if I stop working out, my physical fitness will change. Right? There is no argument there. How much healthy food do I eat or how often do I eat? That could be argumentative, because everyone's different. That could be debated. But whether or not you do it, like how often do I have to work out? When can I stop working out to the point where I'm just healthy for the rest of my life? And we all know the answer to that. It's never. Now, as I progress in life, I become more efficient with my workouts, so to speak. That changes, but the actual fact of actually doing something physical will not. Mm-hmm. What you don't use, you end up losing. So please don't lose your oxygen, because it actually is the elevation, the thing to get you to a higher frequency and stay there. And if you dip, breathe a little bit more, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, I actually enjoy this part of my life.
The fact that this is something physical, something that's quick,
and
that can be
free.
done and free,
it's
and that you have it with you at all times. That's extremely powerful.
Yeah, me and Mike we're going to sell oxygen tanks.
Perspective shift oxygen tanks.
Perspective shift.
Reach out to us about those.
Yeah, we're selling for $1,000 a canister.
Per
wants to buy them.
Per tank.
It's actually pure perspective shift grade oxygen.
I love it. Seriously, that's big pharma's. That's Pfizer's next move. Is they're going to sell us oxygen that's better for us. Yeah. So. I say we play the Wim Hof clip.
Yeah, let's do the Wim Hof one.
Because this is a great one.
Yeah, I love Wim Hof.
Stress makes you go into sympathetic mode, which is very shallow breathing, fast. If you notice that, and I want to say this, and I want to... Stop. Yes, here I am. If you feel the anxiety, you want to make it go away, then the best is 30 times breathing deeply in, a minute hold, and you do it again. And you do it again, until you feel you get a complete hold over your chemistry, anxiety is gone, and you can experience and feel it and guarantee it for yourself.
It's brilliant. And that's... Yep. Like, how many times would you sit down and breathe in 30 times and then do a breath hold? How many times would it worth you to feel supreme? And the answer is I would do it till the moment I felt good.
Yep.
And I've done that.
And often that only takes 30 breaths.
No, but if you're just starting out, it might be uncomfortable, might be doing this, but watch it happen. Get out of that complaining victim mindset and know this is possible. I don't care who you are. The physiology of the body works the same for everyone when it comes to oxygen. The expression you have with your physical body is going to be different than everybody else's, so we don't need to compare there. But I don't need to compare how well my lung sac is to Mike's, you know what I'm saying? That doesn't matter.
Well, it's funny too, like I heard this one gentleman, I forgot his name, but he was talking about how we choose our hard. We choose our level of hard. And it's like, okay, so we're going through a tough time, it's been a rough day. Work's not going our way. We're fighting with family. We're fighting with our friends. We're fighting with our significant other, whatever. You're going through this tough time. That's hard. Well, at that moment, you can actually change physically the frequency and vibration you're on simply through breathing. You can reset that moment. And yes, breathing can be hard, especially if we're not used to it, or especially if it's not part of our routine yet. But it's a way for us to experience what we don't want to, continue to further with a state of uncomfortable suffering, or disease, things like that. So I guess what I'm saying is pick your level, pick your hard. Do I want to feel this state of being stagnant? Do I want to feel this state of feeling like shit? Or do I want to put a physical practice into place that takes 5 to 10 minutes of my time and energy and effort to do in order to, experience that comfortable, resting, most natural state. And so I always remind myself this, like when I get up and I'm tired and I'm like, I don't need to do my breath work today. Well, hold on. What heart am I choosing, And so I'm like, I'd rather sit down, do my breath work, get into that comfortable state, than, start, watching my mind go all over the place and begin to run miles on me, and get me into this twisted, uncomfortable, got to do this today, and then I got to be here. The mind will run you ragged. And, so choose your heart. Where do you want to put this effort?
Yeah, and once you choose it, over time, because I've experienced it, so getting up and breathing is not hard. It's like getting up and breathing and or getting up and drinking coffee is not hard for most people. Mm-mm. It's because it's a habit. So over time, it won't even be hard. What will happen is you'll actually start to look at things that, like, okay, I'm taking on a new business partner, or I'm going into a new business venture. All of a sudden, now you're excited about it rather than worried about it. So you're at a different frequency when you're looking at this situation, opposed to being at a lower frequency where you almost have to get on your tippy toes to even see a little bit over the fence. It's like trying to watch a movie through a hole in a wall, opposed to having no wall and you have full access to the screen with your eyes. That's the difference here. So if you only had a little hole in the wall, you had to close one eye and put the other one, how much of that movie would you want to watch?
Yeah.
And you'd give up on wanting to watch a movie. So this breathing techniques allows the wall to dissipate, to see everything you could see in front of you, get to a higher place, and now watching the movie, getting to the business, expanding your business, whatever you're doing, a workout, relationship, all of a sudden you're excited about it. That's why anything new has a lot of oxytocin coming in. But when I do my hard breath work, that naturally comes in without having to have something physical really happen out in front of me, such as, a new relationship or a new anything. All right. But I do that first so I create the new feeling, not wait for something new to happen, because something new will happen eventually. But I don't wait for that to get to that state.
Well, and also you're setting the state, allowing for the opportunity to come to you.
Exactly.
Rather than us chasing some state saying, hey, I want to feel good, I'm going to go do this. Well, why not begin with feeling good?
Yep.
And how do we get there? The breath.
Yeah. And when Mike says state and frequency is synonymous, that's the same thing. So obviously, if I want to experience sunny weather, in the wintertime, there's a myriad of different states you can go to, and one being Arizona. So, but the state of Arizona is a frequency setting, but then we get here, the vibrational comes of the experience that we have. Mm-hmm. And that's when I want to correlate the two together. So once you step out of a state, go to the breath. Then the breath will get you into that state. And then you remain there. When you slip out of it, keep doing this breathing. And then over time, you realize I'm actually breathing naturally this way. And it's easy for me to maintain. And the second I slip so subtly, I start to breathe again. And maybe there'll be a moment in time where I'll never have to think about breath. But the fact that when I dip, I know go right to my breath, it's easy for me. I don't have to go to a pill or to a sugary food or to watch Netflix, because it's not always there. Those work, by the way, but they're not sustainable. Mm-hmm. Why aren't they sustainable? Because, it's going to wear out.
It's a dopamine hit.
Yeah, it's a short one. It's a short-lived one. It doesn't work continuously.
There's a ton of science on this stuff too, guys, which is awesome. For those analytical, people out there who really want to, see the science behind this type of thing. There is an immense amount of neuroscience behind breathing and how it affects. Like Frank mentioned earlier, Wim Hof. They've studied Hof for quite some time because they're like, how the hell is this dude's body doing things that are on our level physically impossible? Like, how is he allowing his body to stay in certain temperatures or certain conditions where we would deem that truly impossible, and he's doing the impossible? And how is he doing the impossible? Through breath work.
Yeah, it's only impossible because we never had seen it. So one of the craziest things he's ever done is he went in, he did a breathwork session and then went into cold water, and then he was done this in a laboratory, so they're testing him, and then they injected him with E. coli.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And what they found is E. coli was in there, but his cells weren't allowing it to permit into the cell, get linked in there, so it was surrounded by it. So the effects of E. coli didn't occur in his body. And then like, okay, you're a phenomenon. He goes, no, I'm not. And so he took 12 people at different ages that never even did this stuff. And I think there was a small percentage or one person that got slightly affected by the E. coli, but normally it would ended up in the hospital, right? Now, again, if something did happen, they had, the ability to counterbalance it through, some type of medication, what have you. But the people who, followed the protocol tightly, because he actually guided them through that and did all this stuff, were injected with E. coli, they turned out the same, and they haven't been doing this forever. So you don't have to wait 6 years to get the results that Wim Hof is getting. You just got to wait in like 6 minutes.
Literally.
A really good breathwork session for me is 10 minutes or more.
Yeah. Oh hell yeah.
I could do a 5-minute one too, and it feels really good.
I do the 5 ones like throughout the day.
Yeah, and I think too is like, and
I like it in the morning, and then I do another one at lunch, and then I do a short one in the evening.
And I also want to clarify, because I know this to be true, that even the breath work we're talking about is still a permission slip.
Yeah.
This is why we don't really know the full causation. But knowing that, like, okay, I don't feel good, or I'm a little nervous, or something came up that I haven't seen in a while, and it hit me. Just knowing I have the capacity to breathe in and breathe out, I just, one breath, all of a sudden, I let go of whatever I was holding on to. Yeah. Because I'm already used to it. Where in the past, I might have had it done a full 10 minutes to let go. Now I'm letting go, just knowing it's there. It's almost like, I think something hit me. And then I'm like, well, I could go to my breath. And just thinking that statement, I let go of that thing. And I didn't, I was like, oh. And then
trained your body to know that state.
And then what I noticed is my heart rate dropped down. So my body regulation naturally happened because I'm already used to that frequency. So what we're doing is we're creating new baselines. So when it's kind of like living life, like I used to live life like this, right?
Up and down, and
up and down. And there was this plane. So I get here, it was exciting, but then I go down here, and I get here, it's exciting. But after a while, this is no longer exciting because I've been here so many times. The way I live life now is this way.
Constantly going further.
So going down permits me in the physical world to go up. So it's a wave. But I'm actually integrating that downward as excitement to go higher, So now my trajectory of life is expansion, not linear or diminishment. Yeah. And so when you're living a linear life, it's, because we live on a round planet, it actually somewhat looks like it's diminishing because you're going this way. Where I want to elevate up out of the atmosphere, away from it. And it's a different way of living. And as I start to do these techniques, again, breathing is a permission slip, but a very good permission slip. It's one of the best permission slips.
And you're really onto something with that momentum stuff, because you're right. Now when certain things come up that I would deem, non-preferential, or, hey, I don't prefer this, type of thing, not like a good situation. I realize that is the momentum pushing me into the path that I'm on, my highest and best path, what's best for me. And so I can ride it out easier. I don't get as caught up in the situation. I understand, hey, everything that's happening is unfolding exactly like it should be. And this is bringing me closer to my goals, my highest and best use, my path, and that's such a different way of looking at things, because what we go through is we have these moments in life, where, big tragedies happen, or we lose our job or whatever, and it wipes us out, and we just get annihilated by it.
So we don't see
how that's not what they're there for. It's actually there as momentum to get to that next stage.
Yeah, but even the next stage, where the true excitement isn't the pinnacle of, or the crest of the wave, it's the trough. So yeah, it's like when you jump out of an airplane and you're obviously parachuting, skydiving, is the landing of the ground the exciting part?
No.
It's still like before you pull the chute is the exciting part. Again, you want to land properly too.
Have you been skydiving?
I have not.
I have.
Oh, yeah?
It was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
But over time, it's like, you start to do, like the first time you do it, when I'm assuming, especially here in the United States, you have to have a tandem. So somebody that knows what the hell they're doing is strapped to your back. And I don't know how many times you have to do that. But say you get to the point where you do it on yourself. So they're probably jumping out with your hand on the chute, right? You're probably on like, okay, they said in like count 6 seconds and pull, right?
Yep.
And then, after 10 times, you're not even counting. Or maybe you are. But now your hand's not here. Now you're actually enjoying it. And then by the 20th time, you're probably doing flips. You're still, again, that's what we're talking about. The more you do these breath works, the more you do this, it's the kind of, it's that jumping out of the airplane excitement is what we're looking for, not just the landing and finally getting this over with. Thank God I can write that off my list. I'm like, no, don't live that life that way. Don't be like, I checked this off, I could say I did it. But you were terrified.
Yeah.
Like, keep doing it to where it's not terrifying. And then it's actually the most important part of my journey is the going down. And then I naturally go up to a higher level because I want to create I don't want to be in the same plateau. So when I incorporate fully going down, I always end up higher than where I started. I always do. But if I'm leery about going down, don't like it, I end up sometimes short from where I was.
Yep.
And I start doing this or just enough to get here. Just enough to get here. I'm not fully liking this. I'm not fully liking this. But if I hold in till I retire, everything will be good. And and then you retire, and then they give you 6 months to live.
Welcome to America.
Welcome to,
ain't it a beautiful thing? The
is.
American dream.
So just breathe, damn it.
Right.
Let's
pull up the next video. This gentleman talking about a little bit about, he talks about Wim. Are you pulling up Breathe?
Yeah, let's do Sandy, then we'll do that guy last.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so this breath work, let me introduce it. Actually, we'll play it, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Okay,
right,
cool.
Perfect.
All right. Welcome, all of you beautiful breathing people, to another guided breathwork session. In today's journey, we're going to be doing 2 rounds of 4 minutes using coherent breathing, with each round followed by a short 30-second breath retention on the exhale. Coherent breathing is very simple. We'll be inhaling through the nose for 4 counts, 3, 4, and then exhaling through the nose 2 for 4 counts, 3, 4. Beautiful. And the 4 counts to this rhythm is around 6 seconds, which comes out to about 5 breaths per minute, while the normal adult breathes around 12 to 18 breaths per minute. So imagine the healing that can take place if we learn to slow our breath down during our day-to-day activities. Now the key here is to not hear your breath. We should be breathing very light and slow. So in this session, you will not hear my breath, and you will not hear your breath. Because when you're sitting at your desk and you're doing your work, you want to be breathing light and slow. So this session is here for you to practice consciously the perfect breath, so that eventually you'll be breathing like this in an unconscious way.
All right. The reason I brought this up is over the last several podcasts Mike and I were talking about was that 1 minute breath, trying to get your breath down to about 7 breaths per minute. Well, it's a great exercise. He gets you down to 4.
I love it.
So over time, if you do this, and they're very short, it's only 2 rounds of this. It's, even though the video is about 15 minutes, the actual breath work, because it's like music afterwards, you don't need that. So we're going to link this video for you guys to watch in its entirety in the descriptions below.
Yep.
I always wonder, like, the descriptions below. I never go on YouTube videos and look at that, but imagine, like, hours.
It exists.
It does exist.
It's there. It's
Frankie
totally
just
there.
doesn't know about it.
Yeah, we'll put it in there.
I always hear people say that, but
Yeah.
I never really go down to the links. I don't know why. But anyway, over time, if you practice this consciously, like we had you take a stopwatch out and breathe in and breathe out. The cool thing about this is he's actually guiding you so you don't have to think. And then over time, if you do this every day, a couple times a day, all of a sudden you realize your body's naturally breathing 5 to 7 times per minute. So it's deeper and getting rid of carbon dioxide better. You notice, man, it's 7 o'clock at night and I feel like I just woke up.
Mm-hmm.
That is because you're oxygenating your body properly. That's the way. And then when you go to bed at night, what I do is I do a certain type of breath work to slow down my heart rate to get me tired.
Me
I
too.
don't wait till I get tired. I'm like, okay, I'm going to bed now. And then my body just naturally knows when to wake up.
Yeah.
Or my wife wants me up.
And you find out.
And you find out.
Well, good morning.
Yeah. So that's the reason I brought this one in, because
It's a great technique, this.
Yes.
Because, like you're saying, it sets a habit. Everything we do, our entire lives, everything we got going on is all a series of habits, patterns. And so Frank's talking about changing our current breathing patterns. And if you were to do this, day in, day out, give yourself, 21 days. I don't know what it is, but there's a certain number of days to form a habit. I don't know, 17, 14, 21, pick your poison. At the end of the day, you're creating a habit. Think about the benefits of creating a good habit, like properly breathing.
Yep.
And that's what changes.
And what happens is, because we're not supposed to live within the field of habits alone, but if I habitually breathe better, I feel better. So then I could step out because I have more energy. Then I could consciously go into exploratory avenues of my life, which will not be habitual. But the habit of feeling good keeps me in the creative expression. All right. So like I mentioned this before, but I've heard many times that we use 5%, or 5% of our time we're conscious. That means 95% of the time we're unconscious or in the subconscious. Okay. I don't know if that will ever change. Perhaps it will. But in that 5% of the time, why not utilize it this way? So then in the 95% of the time, you're actually feeling good. So when people are, how you feel? I'm like, you know what? I feel really good. And then you look at your watch. My God, it's 9 o'clock at night. And, I'm feeling really good. Mm-hmm. Not like, oh, I'm feeling tired. Oh, it must be 4 o'clock. I'm like, that's a weird habit.
Yep. And we've created those habits with coffee. People, that 3 o'clock crash, that this o'clock.
Go get a cookie and a half cup of coffee because I don't want to stay up all night.
Yep.
And I'm like, why are you drinking coffee in the afternoon? Mm-hmm. It's because I'm tired. I'm like, why do you think you're tired? Because your body isn't oxygenated properly. Mm-hmm. So, you might have to put a little focus and effort in the beginning, which why is that good? Because focus, when you're putting forth focus onto it, that's what we call conscious.
One thing I do want to bring up too, that just it kind of correlates with all of this. Back in the 60s and 70s, so he mentions, people are breathing at, what was it, 12 to 18 breaths per minute right now?
Yeah, I've heard different variants, but that sounds about right.
Yeah. So that's where people are at today. Well, back in the 60s and 70s when, they measured this, they were breathing, 7 to 9. We have over the years learned to breathe more and more and more. And it has to do with the foods we're eating. It has to do with the amount of stimuli we have, the amount of stress that we have, the elevated levels of stress. But our breathing has gotten worse over the years. And surprise, surprise, what else has? Our obesity rate, our chronic illness rate. So are we that ignorant to think that our breathing is not a direct correlation to, our overall health? Absolutely.
There's a deep correlation there.
Yeah, huge. And so it's like, why don't we look at this with some common sense, And we know this isn't going to be a topic for the media or discussion. Why? Because breathwork is free. I have nothing to sell you.
And like what Mike said, there's a lot of scientific evidence out there about breath work. Go study it. But the best thing to do is just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah, it just
because
feels good.
You become your own scientist. I don't take anyone's word for anything. But if someone has compelling argument or something, I'm like, okay, let me try it. Obviously,
let me try it.
Yeah, someone's like breath work. Like, okay, it's not going to take much of my time. It's not going to cost me any money. What the hell?
Yep.
And then you're like, oh my God, that felt good. Wow, okay. What happens if I do it like this? How if I do it this many times? That's when you use the experimental portion on yourself, and then you write the new book on how it is.
Well, and also, like, what do we tell women during pregnancy? What do we have? We have them breathe.
I try not to tell
You
women
know?
anything during pregnancy.
But, the doctor has you. All right, we're gonna breathe. We're gonna,
Yeah.
what do you do when you're hyperventilating? We all
Yeah.
know that you breathe into a bag. There's all sorts of stuff throughout,
Yeah.
history and just in daily life where we can see, wow, the breath really affects our overall physicality, our emotional, mental well-being, all of the above.
Yeah, there's no doubt that it works. To what degree and which degree you utilize it and experiment with it, we'll know the effects of it. This will never end.
Yeah.
So the beautiful thing is, like, someone like Breathwork with Sandy, who the last video we just watched, you go on there, I don't know how many, like 100 and something videos.
Yeah. Oh yeah. More.
Yeah, so like, okay, if you start out with this type of one, this very basic, easy one, and then he has ones where they're 40 minutes and it's a psychedelic trip. Does anyone have any done psychedelic drugs? Try doing this breath work. It's in and out the mouth. It's not something I suggest you do normally. Like I was told, I've been doing this for a little bit now.
Long time.
I went up to Sedona. The guy had me do that, but he says don't do it more than once a week. I'm like, all right.
That deep.
Oh yeah, I was doing it for an hour, and all of a sudden, like you
felt like you're out of your body.
Yeah, it felt like I was out of my body. I wasn't, but it felt like I was, and I would come back, and the only way I knew that was like I realized I stopped the rhythm of breathing in which the guy had me doing. I went back into it like a good soldier, but then I realized that was the purpose. I was breathing so deeply that I just stepped away from it, and my body completely relaxed. And then it was wild. Like I had these wild visions. And then time after that, periodically, what would happen is synchronistic things would show up and ideas would come in. So there is some other residual benefit that happens. But I'm doing it for the experience right now. I'm not like, okay, I want to breathe good so I could come up with the winning numbers of the lottery. I'm like, no, that's just weird. I don't do things like that, I just I do it for the moment. I stay in the moment. But yet then there are these interesting residual synchronistic things that lay out in front of you. And then it's like, wow, okay. Now when I do this, the experience is really good. But then let me see what happens a day later or a week later. That's where life gets really fun and exciting. Yeah.
It does. So this next clip that we have is this gentleman talking about Wim Hof. He's talking about Andrew Huberman. He's mainly focusing on Huberman here. It's cool because it explains a little bit more about the science side of things when it comes to the breath work and how that works, but it also introduces Huberman. So Frank and I wanted to introduce both Wim Hof and Huberman in this episode just because they are they're great resources for the breath, and there's a lot of science behind both of them.
Yeah, because Andrew Huberman actually
is a scientist, right?
Yes, he actually is a professor at Stanford University. So
they do this in the lab.
Yeah, he has a lab. Yeah. So exactly, and he has I think it's Huberman Lab is his podcast. So there's a lot of information just on health in general, but we're talking about the breath here. So here we go.
Did you know that Andrew Huberman and his lab worked with Wim Hof to research the science behind his method and its potential applications for treatment and general well-being?
The science of what Wim Hof method does is one of the primary interests of my lab now because it is so powerful and it's been shown to be powerful in the immune system.
In this video, I'll share insights from the Huberman Lab podcast that have deepened my Wim Hof method breathwork practice and how you can use certain principles to elevate this powerful practice to improve every area of your life. I learned about the science behind this method and what was happening in the body while doing the deep hyperventilation breathing and the breath holds. But it was through Andrew Huberman and his podcast that I learned about the connection between breathing and our autonomic nervous system itself that wasn't bound to a specific method, which broadened my perspective by so many factors. To use this knowledge to your advantage, it's important to first understand how breathing is connected to our autonomic nervous system. Among other things, our autonomic nervous system governs the underlying mechanism of how energetic we feel throughout the day. We don't exist in a vacuum. We constantly get bombarded with external stimuli from the world around us. And our autonomic nervous system helps us to survive in this world. For example, suppose we face a dangerous situation. A branch of our autonomic nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system is activated to gear our body and mind for action. In that case, it causes a fight and flight stress response. Other situations, like when we sleep, rest, or have eaten a big meal, engage the other branch of our autonomic nervous system called the parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and recovery mode. And our breathing is neurologically connected to the autonomic nervous system. So our respiration rate increases when we get stressed or angry. And I think we all know that intuitively. The same is true when we are relaxed or are sleeping. Our respiration rate then decreases. But we all have gateways to consciously influence our autonomic nervous system. It's not just something happening to us. And those gateways are our breathing, eyes, body movement, and mind. So a crucial thing to understand is all the effects the Wim Hof method breathwork can have on us and our autonomic nervous system is replicable by other practices. And I find that extremely liberating, because if breathwork doesn't work for you, for whatever reason, you can achieve the same or very similar results by taking a different route, like taking a cold shower, exercising, etc. But even more so, with this profound knowledge about these gateways to our autonomic nervous system, I can stack the deck to my advantage. For example, if I want to increase my alertness to be more productive, for example, I can combine deep, fast-paced breathing from the Wim Hof method with focusing my vision on a single point. In his episodes about vision, Andrew Huberman explained how focusing our sight on a single point affects our nervous system and enables us to become more alert, much like deep and fast in breathing. The same thing happens the other way around. When I use a peripheral vision, where I consciously dilute my vision and combine it with slow breathing or the breath hold part from the Wim Hof method breathwork. This way I'm stacking my deck with layers on how I can calm down or how I get more alert. This is just a small example of how a more systemic perspective enables me to combine things to increase the effect.
So that was perfect. That's what we're saying. So
A little bit of both from each of them. You know?
So like obviously in the morning when you want this energy throughout the day, this certain type of breath work will keep you there. And then at night when you try and go to bed, like I'm not tired. I'm like, well, there's a way to get your body calm down, settle down to where you can go into that. So at any moment you can utilize that, because sleep is very important. And I think most people know this just by sleeping. Mm-hmm. But what it does, it actually gets rid of toxins and at the same time repairs the body. So if you get an inadequate sleep, you're not fully doing that. So, and that's like a lot of the toxins, if you don't get rid of them, guess where they get stored? Mm-hmm. In your body fat. So you wonder why you're holding on to extra body fat, because your body's trying to protect you from toxins. So all these things are completely related to, I tell people, I'm like, even if you just breathe a little deeper throughout the day, you're actually going to burn more calories without even going to a gym, right? Absolutely. You are. Now, obviously, when you go to the gym and lift weights or you're running, you then have to focus even deeper onto your breathing. That's why you will get better results by adding breath work in with a physical exercise that's a little more strenuous on the body. But then how do I calm myself down? I don't have to wait for the sun to go down and to get dark and wait till my TV show's over to do that.
Nope.
We can do it almost like what we say at will.
Any moment.
But you have to enact that, yeah.
And that's what's so cool. And I love this gentleman. His name's Kitaro Laga. He had some different stuff in regards to breathing and whatnot, but I like how he brought together a little bit about Huberman, a little bit about Wim Hof, and it touched on everything that we touched on in this episode relating to vibration and frequency.
Yep.
You know? Yeah.
So the message, Mike, I'm telling you, just damn freaking breathe.
Yeah,
just breathe. Try whatever form of breath work. There's plenty out there. You can go to Andrew Huberman Lab or Huberman Lab.
That's for a lot of science.
Yeah, it's science.
And we should throw Dispenza in there too.
Well, yeah,
because he's great when it comes to breath work.
Yeah, I think didn't we share? It was like not the last
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, where you engage the core.
Yeah, so breathwork with Sandy. There was one there we we put in the link below the episode. I think it was the present moment one.
Yeah.
And so the Sandy actually expressing, he did 2 different type of breath works in that session. One was what they call the Joe Dispenza breathing, where you breathe in, you actually create a vacuum, you slowly stop breathing, and you squeeze your perineum, lower ab, upper ab, and you're pushing that spinal fluid up your spinal column, and it actually creates electromagnetic field in the body, and it starts to trigger and hit your pineal gland. This is where energy and creative expression come in at the same time. And so, yeah, it's kind of like Joe Dispenza. But there's so many, because we talk about Joe Dispenza, Wim Hof, and Andrew Huberman. What all they're doing is putting another spin or tail on something that's been around since the beginning of time.
Forever. And
Forever,
yogis have been doing this forever. This has been going on in the Himalayan mountains forever. It's been going on in churches around the world forever. All sorts. We have. It's a way to channel that energy.
Shakti.
And really experience your chi.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, so just continue. We advocate doing this type of stuff. So the breath work with Sandy, that actually is a functional one you could do. So we'll put that link in there. So just try it. It's a 2-round one. It's really good. That will help you get your natural breathing down. So when stuff gets rough that day, you're not as startled, because your nervous system's actually intact. And then if you have any questions or want us to cover any other topics within this field, please email us with questions or a story. We like stories as well, and how this is helping you, or if it's helping you, at perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com.
And join us this next week. We've got 7 days until our next podcast episode here. Implement this for 7 days. Give yourself 5 to 10 minutes. I would suggest 10 minutes, each day, and just watch the little subtle changes. Things will kind of work out more. Things won't feel as overwhelming. You won't be as bothered or upset by things. It's worth trying.
And know this, by you taking advantage of this and you taking control over this, you're going to help your friends and family that live around you without uttering a word.
Oh, absolutely.
Do it. So if you're not just doing it for yourself, do it for everybody else.
Well said.
Watch what happens.
Well said.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We will see you next week here on Perspective Shift.
All right. Much love and peace out.
Thanks, guys.